So now that we're out of winter retreat and some of the COVID regulations have relaxed, we have guests back with us. And the other day I was just watching Venerable Pende, who's from our guest care department, welcoming the first guest of the year after retreat, a young man named Robson, who's here from Brazil. And it was just wonderful to watch her in her element, just enthusiastically welcoming people and helping them to get settled in. So the next day I mentioned to Venerable Pende, it's just such a delight to watch you welcome people. You have a really, you really have a gift for that. And then she said, everything about hospitality I learned from my mother. She was really good at taking care of people, and she was a great cook. When she passed away, many people came to her funeral to express their gratitude. So that was very moving to hear. And that moment just kind of blew my mind because I realized, when I see Venerable Pende being kind to someone new, I'm not just seeing her kindness in that moment. I'm seeing the kindness of her mother, right? And then, of course, her mother learned how to take care of people from others, and it was like, suddenly I felt like, you're witnessing this whole lineage of kindness in that moment, of all the people interconnected, coming together and having this connection, at that time. And also, I just feel like so much of our cultivation of kindness here is dependent on guests coming. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to witness that if guests didn't come. So it's just wonderful to have you back with us after this long stretch, of opening briefly and then closing again. And I will say this is one of the things I love most about the Abbey, that you really don't know who you're going to have lunch with because, people just show up and we open our hearts and take care of them. So again, I was thinking about what are the chances of someone from Brazil watching these teachings on YouTube and having the courage to get on a plane and come here? And the first person he meets is someone who grew up in Vietnam, right? Who migrated to the US. And, just all these causes and conditions bringing these two people together here. And the same goes for the whole community, really, because we have such an international group of people and also people coming from nearby. So this is just really evidence to me of karma ripening, causes and conditions all bringing us together like this. And as I was sitting in the back of the room during our first sharing the Dharma Day of the year when we opened to guests again, and just how it felt to have people back in this room, all meditating together, breathing together, I just really felt a sense of how I think so much healing happens in relationship with each other, especially after this time of kind of, isolation to take care of our health and things. Whenever we sit and meditate in a group, I am reminded of an experience I had when I was 14. So that's something I'd like to share with you. When I was 14, the school brought us on a field trip to watch a performance by a theater company called the Mostar Youth Theater. And they were staging a play called Pax Bosnensis. I don't understand Latin, so I'm sorry about mangling it, but it means the peace in Bosnia. So this was a theater company that had been formed in the 70s, and throughout the war between Bosnia and Serbia, they continued to make work. And this was the play that they made about surviving that war. And they staged it in a bombed out building. And so it had a real impact on the people who watched it. And it was their first time traveling out of Bosnia to stage it overseas. So it was part of a youth theater festival in Singapore. So, the whole literature class went. And it made a very strong impact on me. There were no words. It was just movement and music. These young people using their bodies to show you images of European civilization. There were all these tableaus of like the Last Supper, images from movies, like the idea you have about what it means to be cultured and civilized, and how that was just blown apart by the violence that they experienced day to day for years. And the scene that left the deepest impact on me was a dance between a young man and woman. And you knew from the dance it was about rape as a weapon of war. And there was someone playing the cello in front. And it was like they were holding this question of, how do we love and trust again after this war? But we must somehow go on, right? So we were just left with this very pregnant question, I think. And the amazing thing was that afterwards, our school invited them to give us a workshop with the drama club. So I had the opportunity to be part of that. And because they were so physically skilled, I thought it was going to be like a typical physical theater workshop. You know, you roll around on the ground and you learn technical exercises. But instead, they used their time with us to do this exercise that I had never done before. They got us to bring blindfolds. So we all had to blindfold ourselves and stand near someone and put our hand on someone. Yeah, and then they turned out the lights, and we just stood there and breathed with our hand on someone. And then after a while, someone came to me. I didn't know who it was, and they put their hand on the small of my back, and then they guided me. You know, so there I was in the hands of a stranger, right? In darkness, you couldn't see where you were going. They guided me to some other place in the room, and then they put my hand on someone else, and then they left. So I didn't know who I was touching, but I just stood there and breathed in the silence. And then after a while, another person came, and he said, "Follow me," and started to click his tongue. So I had to kind of stumble around following the clicking of someone's tongue to another part of the room. And then again, you know, he put my hand on someone else. And then I just stayed there and breathed. And so there were maybe about 20, 30 of us, 14-year-olds in the hands of these 20-something-year-olds from the theater company doing that for almost 20, 30 minutes. Just moving around like that, trusting strangers and breathing together. And of course, there were times where I was like, what's going on? This is boring. But it was just such a profound experience. And afterwards, when we came out of it, the theater company said that was all they did for weeks and weeks as a company, as a way to feel safe again, you know, to build trust again, to be able to be in connection and work with each other again after a war that had divided the community quite terribly. So that's why this experience has stayed with me, that was how they healed. And that's how we heal as a community, right? Just coming together and breathing together. And whenever I think of this experience, I see how much I take for granted. The fact that we meditate, you know, like that we have a safe space, that we can be with others and have a quiet place to just breathe together. So many people don't have that. I was talking about this with someone who works with victims of domestic violence. And I was thinking, yeah, there are women who don't have that kind of space in their own home. They can't sit quietly and breathe. Someone might bust in and yell or hit them. It's like, wow, you know? So yeah, that's what's been on my mind, that as you know, we come out of these 2 years of COVID regulations, I really think a lot of the healing that needs to happen will happen in relationship. And it's just wonderful to have guests here starting to do that with us. Yeah, and that's really, really important, just finding ways to come together safely. In some strange way, I think that's why there's war too and shootings happening. It's almost like people want so much to connect and don't know how. So the first thing you do is strike out or act on the habitual impulse. Deep down, I think the wish is for connection and love. Yeah. So I wanted to end with a quote I read by Dorothy Day that hopefully will inform our time together to come. She said, "We have all known the long loneliness, and we have learned that the only solution is love, and that love comes with community." So many thanks to all the guests who are here for bringing kindness to us and allowing us to heal in relationship.